just record this. Probably I'll put this on my YouTube channel then so other people can watch it also. So Alan, thank you for being here on my Patreon, for being uh, very nice and always responding. We chatted a little bit. So I have a few questions for you, but first of all, my very first question is, how the hell did you decided to live in Portugal? Why and for how long have you been here? Because if I
Yes.
lived in the US, I wouldn't come to Portugal probably. No, probably I would.
Oh! Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dora, for your hospitality, and thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Um, well, the first question is, yes, I live in Lisbon, so I'm here in Portugal, and we love it here. It's my wife and I. We've always dreamed of living abroad. My wife has family throughout Europe. She lived a year in Madrid, and while traveling Europe, we've come very fond of Portugal. We love Portugal and culture, the people, and we wanted to get a chance to live abroad. So we've been living here for almost a year. In a few weeks, it'll be our 1 year anniversary of being here in
Okay.
Lisbon. So we're very grateful to be here, and we really enjoy it, and just thankful to get a chance to live here in Portugal.
And how does your wife get on with speaking Portuguese? Does she understand also?
She is doing much better than me. I've been so busy writing I had another book due this past year, so I've been sort of a nerd sitting at my computer writing my next novel. So she's had time to practice. She's speaking very well. So she speaks, I say fairly fluent, and she would say, no, I'm still learning. So she was a language professor
Oh, okay.
back in the States. So I think it comes a little easier for her. So she's doing quite well.
Okay. Like 3 days, no, last Friday, I had a Zoom call with another Portuguese publisher and an author. She's from the UK, and on Saturday, she's going to FNAC Colombo. Do you know Colombo?
No, no,
No, you
that's,
do. It's the mall, the big mall
oh, okay,
next
yes,
to Benfica.
yes.
And I'm going to be there also to present her book, and it's about Auschwitz also. And me and the publisher were telling her about the importance of Portugal within the Second World War II and the Jewish. And I said, she's from another publisher, but I don't care about that. I picked up your book and I said, hey, you must read this book. And I said,
Thank you.
you need to Google Alan, and this in English is the book Spy. And I told her that you lived in here, you moved from America to Portugal, and I told her she's a nomad. She has no home, and she's
I
always
see.
traveling, and she's never come to Portugal. And I said, when you come here, you will love it here because the food is great, the weather is great, the people are amazing. But Alan, there's just one thing nowadays that I used to say also, that it's very cheap, but now Portugal, it's not cheap. It's the only
Yes.
thing. But the other thing, she will love it here, and probably she'll sometime decide to live here. Okay, before asking you some questions, let me just say that this was the first time I read your book. Was this your first book, or do you have another book prior to this?
Yes, that was my first of 5 books that I've written. So the fifth one's actually being released in the US in a few months. So that is my first book.
So this is your fourth or your second?
That one is my fourth. Yeah, a bookstore in times of war was my fourth book.
But we don't have it here. No, do you remember when you talked about the book Spy, and I asked
Ye-
you?
Yes, that is the Book Spy.
Yeah.
The second book you held up. That's
Okay,
the
and
Book
you
Spy.
translated now to Portuguese because of
Yes.
so how come the publisher Planeta hasn't published your other books? We want to
Oh,
read.
they're in the queue. They purchased rights to publish the other books, but they haven't published them yet. So
Okay.
they've chosen to pick to publish that one second.
Okay, Alan, I'm going to be very blunt. I'm always very blunt. I don't think they publish enough your books. They don't.
Well, thank
Because
you.
your books, they don't. Your books are very good. And I have this project that I read books from World War II and the Holocaust in January, and it's my 8th year.
Oh,
I
wow.
read this year and this 3 years ago, and I loved it, and I did a review, but I don't see much. I don't see a lot of engagement regarding your books. And this publisher, they have a lot of good books from World War II, but I don't know what's happening there. There's something happening right now with them. I do my best because they are really great, but I don't know what's happening. And I think you should they should publish more your books. And I hope that the next one they do a better job. This is my
Oh,
opinion.
thank you.
Ok? Pessoal, estão a perceber tudo? Fatinha, estás a perceber tudo? Se quiserem falar,
Sim, eu entender, entendo. Falar é que é mais complicado. Sabes que eu não
pronto,
tenho prática.
mas estás a entender, não é? Ok. Então, ok, Alan, would you like to tell us a little about this book?
Oh, yes, The Long Flight Home. That was my debut novel, and that is set between the Britain, the United States, and France. And it's set during World War II, and it's about pigeons that were actually used during World War II to collect intelligence. At the beginning of the war, the British believed that the Germans were going to invade Britain, and they believed it was just a matter of time before the British were going to be having to defend their homeland. France had just fallen in 46 days to the Germans, so they really believed that this was imminent. So the British came up with a incredible plan to gain intelligence, and that was to drop pigeons, 16,000 pigeons, into German-occupied France and the Netherlands, hoping that these pigeons, they were in cages, and attached to them in the cage was a capsule attached to the pigeon's leg, paper, a pencil, and instructions written in French. So that was the brilliant plan by the British to gain intelligence. So the story was inspired by in 2012, there was a discovery in a chimney in World War II. It was actually a World War II pigeon. The remains of a pigeon was found inside in a chimney, and inside a capsule was a coded message. And to this day, that coded message has yet to be deciphered by code breakers around the world. And they could tell by the capsule that it was during World War II. It was an Allied pigeon from Britain, but yet they can't decipher the code. So I had came across this article. It was covered all over the world, New York Times and Sunday Times, all different news stations. And I just became very infatuated with this discovery. And so it just couldn't get out of my head. So I decided to write a novel based on this discovery. And the whole time I'm writing this book, I'm hoping that code breakers don't break the code and come up to solve the mystery. So I came up with my own theory of what the message says. And that was sort of the idea for creating The Long Flight Home.
Okay, what about the love story?
Yes, very much. It is also very much a love story between a British woman. She raises pigeons for the National Pigeon Service. And Ollie is a pilot from the United States. He's a crop duster, and he disregards U.S. neutrality and travels to Great Britain to join the Royal Air Force. So it's a love story between two people that meet, and their paths part, and the only connection between them is going to be a special pigeon named Duchess, which Susan, the who raised Duchess from a small pigeon, that's how they communicate.
Ok. So, do you guys by any chance read this book? Pessoal, alguém leu este livro?
Not that one, only the book 5.
Ah, ok. No one else. Ok, you should. You should. Bárbara.
Estava só a dizer que não li nenhum, aliás, nem conhecia, só depois de ter falado sobre este assunto, e por acaso esse livro, por causa dos pigeons, agora está-me a faltar a palavra em português,
Pombos.
os pombos, fiquei super curiosa, porque
Não, é
nunca
muito giro,
pensamos nisso.
tens que ler, tens que ler. Okay, Alan, so when I Googled you, I was very surprised that you work or worked, you had a corporate job. So do you still do that, or you just work from home doing all that, or are you just writing books and living as an American in Lisbon?
Well, I've been very fortunate. I've now been under contract for 7 books with my publisher. So
In
I
the
am now
United
writing
States?
in the United States,
Oh,
my
okay,
U.S.
because in
publisher.
Portugal, I think everyone that's watching this knows here in Portugal, we don't have book deals. You don't
Yes,
you don't
yes.
get an advanced, money
Mm-hmm.
in advance.
Yeah,
You just earn 10%
like
of the sales.
royalties.
It's
Mhm.
very, very, very low. So in the
Yeah.
United States, you probably have an agent and all that. That's
Yes.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. And the books now are in about 15 languages.
Oh,
And
your
so,
books, that's great.
yeah, but not all of them. They
Of
come
course.
out different times, but
Yeah.
yeah, in about 15 languages now. So,
Okay,
but now I'm writing full time.
oh, that's great. And your other 3 books that we don't know here, still here in Portugal, are they also from World War II?
One is from World War One. It's called A Light Beyond the Trenches,
Mhm.
and it's actually set in Germany during World War One. And it's about the setting is about the first guide dog school for the blind, and it was developed because of gas warfare. There were a lot of soldiers coming back from the Western Front from becoming blind from chlorine poisoning and phosgene poisoning from gas warfare. So it's a love story inspired.
You're a very
by
romantic
that.
guy, right?
I know, I can't help it. It's just I've always been sort of a sucker for stories of love and war. Dr. Zhivago. When I was a kid, I used to love to watch, Dr. Zhivago and all these things like that. Where it's just something that I've always enjoyed. I thought that was just a fascinating part of life, was to understand those stories.
Okay. So let me just check what I wrote. Okay. You're free to answer just whatever you feel comfortable, okay? I don't think it's
Sure.
just easy questions, no problem. Okay, Alan, why did you leave the corporate world to devote yourself to writing?
That's a great question. I've always dreamed about becoming a writer, even when I was a kid. My mom, I had to thank my mother for filling my life with books. At an early age, she would take me to the library, just load up with books, and I just I gained a passion for reading at an early age. And I've always dreamed about being a writer, but after going to college and being faced with paying the bills and paying rent and all those important things, I gladly took a
And
job
paying
with an
student
insurance
loans that
company.
we don't have that, and you guys have that? Yeah.
I know. Well, when I went to college, it wasn't too bad of a thing. We had There were some student loans, but tuition has gone
Yeah.
just skyrocketed.
Yeah,
since I
when
went to
we
school.
watch movies and we face the fact that you guys sometimes paid throughout your life, like we are paying a house, that you have a lot of money in debt because you just went to the university. That for us in Portugal, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's the same system as your insurance, health insurance
Health, yeah, exactly. Health insurance, and I think
and
our
education. Yeah.
tuition is just very big challenges to get fixed because it's just not sustainable for the next generation.
No wonder that your fellow American, we have a lot of Americans here, because and all movie stars and all that, as you know, because this is a
Yes.
paradise comparing to. Yeah.
Well, I tend to agree with you.
Are you by any chance Michael Fassbender's neighbor,
No.
the actor? Okay, you could be, but do you know who he is?
I know, I've heard the name, but I don't know details.
Ah,
about
okay,
Michael.
okay. He's an Irish actor. Okay.
Okay.
Another question. Where do you draw your inspiration from? How do you do the research to build your stories? What is your writing process like?
Okay, I'll start for like where I draw my inspiration. Usually, when I write a book, there's something that I will read or come across. I'm always looking for something, an untold story about World War II, something that really happened, that took place that is little known or people don't know about. And I usually use that as a launching point to develop a fictional story around real events. So that's usually how I approach things. For the long flight home, it was the secret message that pigeon message was found in a chimney. The second book was about the first guide dog school for the blind, where many people don't know how the training of guide dogs in mass came about. The books by the real events of real spies from the OSS coming to Portugal to acquire books from booksellers in the refugees that were struggling to flee Portugal and Lisbon, the last gate out of Europe. So I'm trying to find these real stories, real events that many people don't know about, and create that fictional story. So that's how I approach. That's where I get my inspiration.
Okay.
My writing process, I would say I'm a combination between an organic and a person that does a real strict outline on books. So I usually start with the end in mind. I usually know the end of the book before I even start the first word. So I
Really?
sort of envision how things will end, because I always feel like the endings are so important for a book or even a movie or any type of story. I love, like, how do you make a poignant ending that people are going to remember? So I usually try to start with the end in mind and then work my way toward it. I write every day,
That
some
was
days more than
what I
others.
was going to ask you.
Now, there are days, like right now, I'm in research mode for this next book. So I'm like doing lots of research and things right now. So, but once I kick off writing, I will write pretty much every day. And I set the word count goal for the week. I look at like my deadline. I have deadlines. So I look at my deadline when I need to get this 100,000 word manuscript to my editor. And I do the math and I feel, okay, I did so many words per week. So that's how I approach my writing, is just I typically write like a 9 to 5 schedule, with the exception of when I get close to deadline. It's like 7 days a week and I'm staying up late at night. And you had a very beautiful picture of my dog that you sent out on social media,
Oh,
Dora.
yeah.
Her name's Iona, and she's my writing partner. She stays by me when I'm writing. And when I have a deadline, I'm up late at night. She's she doesn't go to bed. It's really funny. I don't know why she does it, but she just like feels this obligation to
She's
hang
your
out with
number
me
one
until.
fan. Just pray that she doesn't kill you with an axe.
Yes.
And do you always write at home, or do you go to coffee shops, or?
I do both. I write at home, some at home, but I love going to a coffee shop. I love the energy of people, being around people, and um, in a coffee shop, I have a handful that I love to go to, and I sort of make my round, so I'm not don't overstay my welcome at any particular coffee shop. So but I do love to go to coffee shops. That's one of my favorite places to write. My first book, The Long Flight Home, was entirely written in a coffee shop.
Oh, okay.
Before, it was when I was working full time at my corporate job, and I would get up at 5:30 in the morning. Our coffee shop opened at 6. I would write for 2.5 hours, and then go into my job. And so that entire book was written in a coffee shop. So
Congratulations, because it paid off.
yeah.
Yeah. And let me save that thought for the last book. Let me ask you another thing. Yeah, how come you ended up in Portugal, and what delights you about Portugal? What do you like best?
Oh, okay. Yes, we have our children. Our children are grown, and none of our children are married at the moment. Our children are independent, working in the States and living all over the place. We have one in New York, one in Boston, the rest are in Cleveland, and we we saw this as a great window in our life to live abroad, and we've visited Portugal a number of times and just love people, the culture. There's so many things that I can
The
go. I can
lights.
make it. Yes, the sunshine. I'm from Cleveland. I don't know if anybody knows much about Cleveland, Ohio, but
Fog and
we get.
factories.
Yes, we get cloud cover starting in late October, and it doesn't leave. It doesn't really. We don't really get sunshine until almost May. So, and sometimes we can get 100 inches of snow in the wintertime. So I feel very grateful to be here and enjoy the weather and the people. And but yes, we love Portugal, and we're thankful to call it home.
Okay, so is that a writer or book that inspired you to start writing stories?
This is going to sound very strange, but I would say Stephen King.
I thought you were going to say that.
Did you? Yeah, I was
had
a
a
real.
feeling, I don't know why. When you said strange, and I thought he's going to mention
You
Stephen
say
King.
Stephen King, yeah. I was, in high school and college, I love thrillers. I love Stephen King, Dean Koontz, and I love the horror and thriller genre. And I guess as I get a little bit older, I got into historical fiction and back to love stories. But just the stories, the art of writing. I was inspired by his writing. He was just an incredible writer.
Oh, okay. Regarding this one, Alan, again, I'm going to be very blunt. It's not because you're here. I thought this book was so Portuguese, that I've read two World War II books, one from an American and another one from a Brazilian lady a few years ago, and she mentioned also the Jews there, and that Portugal was a neutral country, and all that. I haven't read any Portuguese. Well, I've read José Rodrigues dos Santos. Do you know who he is?
I know that.
Is the best-selling, one of the best-selling book authors in Portugal. He has a lot of, is the Portuguese Dan Brown,
Yes.
no? And he has two magnificent books about the World War II, but they are set in Auschwitz. But this book is so beautiful because it's real, and it taught me a lot about Portugal that I didn't even know.
Oh,
or probably I knew but already forgot. And you know, I live 80 kilometers from Lisbon. I have lived in Lisbon. I go there all the time. My grandmother lives there. I have lived there, worked there for 13 years. So when I was reading your book, it is Lisbon. I felt the light. I felt everything. And I was thinking, how come this American guy knows this? No, it's because it goes beyond the story. The story very beautiful about the fake documents and the spy and Maria and all that. But you can feel the Lisbon atmosphere in this book.
Oh,
And that's why I asked you if you write on coffee shops, because I felt that you have to, in your travels, when you came several times to Portugal, you had to be amongst people and blend with people and breathe Lisbon to have inspiration for this book. And I felt that. And that is really amazing. That's why I'm telling you, this book should be mentioned a lot more, you know?
thank you. I'm honored. It was that's one of the things I said. I wanted to make sure it's authentic and real, and that it represents Portugal and the Portuguese people. So I spent a lot of time on research. I'm sort of a research nerd. I love to research and dig in and get lost in research. And I wanted to make sure I really understood the facts and know the people. And I'm glad it came through. Thank you.
Yeah, it did. Can you tell us a little bit? So, what's in this book, the story about?
Yes, the book Spy. It's a story of two people. First, Maria. Maria is lives in New York, and she works at the a library in New York, and she is Portuguese by her father's Portuguese, her mother is German. And during World War II, she finds a way to get recruited to the OSS, to a special branch of the OSS, which the US was the United States spy organization during World War II. And she joins a special team of librarians who are recruited to conduct to acquire periodicals and to microfilm books and newspapers in neutral European territories during World War II. And she was deployed to Lisbon. So it's based on a real story, real people that were deployed to Lisbon during World War II. And it's also a story of Tiago. And Tiago is a bookseller. He owns a bookstore and in Lisbon. And he doesn't just run a bookstore. He and his assistant,
Rosa.
Rosa, yes, Rosa. Well, she was one of my favorite characters to write. She has a lot of spunk. And they team up to forge passports and travel documents to Jewish refugees to help them gain passage to the United States. And during World War II, this was the last, gate. Many of you probably know this was the last gate out of Europe for many Jewish refugees, and many of them had to wait many months to gain passage, and so this was a real fun story to write.
Okay, so Barbara is asking, she just wrote here on the chat, did you have any help from Portuguese people, Portuguese community?
Yes, most of my I wrote some of the book Spy during the pandemic in the US. So I was locked in. So much of my research I did before. I visited Lisbon and spent time in Lisbon. I traveled all the streets and met with people during my time, just during research for the book. During the writing of the book, pandemic was taking place and we were all in lockdown and I wasn't able to travel. So I had to do the rest of the book from my office in my home.
Oh, but
And
you
no
can
coffee
tell that.
shop.
When you're reading the book, you imagine Alan wrote this while in Chiado and Rocio
Yes.
and all that. Yeah.
But yeah, I had a chance to visit all these areas, and his bookstore is on Rua do Crucifixo,
Yeah.
which is a real street, and I just thought that was just like a perfect name for the street that this bookstore needed to be on, and so I had wanted to find their places, and so all this, hopefully the scenery and the people and the venues in the book come through.
Okay, Alan, one last question. I know you already told me this, but I don't remember. I'm sorry. Do you know by any chance when are we going to get the chance to read your next book here in Portugal?
I don't know yet. So I'm waiting to hear from Planeta, my Portuguese publisher, when the next book will be. It'll either be Churchill's Secret Messenger, or it will be A Light Beyond the Trenches. One
I
of
like
those
that.
two. I'm
A
not
Light
sure.
Beyond the Trenches. I like that
Yeah.
name. It sounds
So-
Netflix to me. You never know. You never know.
You never know. You never.
Do you know
That
that
would be nice.
Netflix series? I don't know the name in English. All the Lights.
All the light you
Whatever.
cannot see.
Your
Yes,
book
by
is so
Anthony
much
Doerr.
better, Alan. Your
Well, I don't know
true.
about that. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, so he's
I don't
he's
care.
quite the writer.
Your book is better.
But we did go to the same university. I will say that.
Oh, okay.
Anthony Doerr went
Yeah.
to Bowling Green State University, where I went to college.
No, I really, really liked your book. It's not because you're here. You have a guy here, a boy, he's a little boy. Guilherme, he loves historic fiction. He also has a booktube channel. He reads a lot of these books, and I am sure that he will love this book also. Ouviste, Gui?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
will. He will.
Both of them. I mean, all of them. A
Yeah.
Light Beyond the Trenches is, for what Alan said, it's the most personal to me, I think, because I think that a lot of stories are written about the Second World War, but I don't see
Not enough.
yeah, of the first one, of the First World War,
Yes.
and I would like to see more of that, and uh, I hope that book of yours is the next one being published in Portugal.
Me too. Thank
When
you.
Alan mentioned World War I, and I thought about you. Yeah, I thought, well, Guilherme will like it. I don't know if anyone has a question, you guys. They're shy.
I have just one question.
Go ahead.
Alan, you said earlier that your first thing when you think about a book is the ending. Was there ever a time where you were thinking about one ending and then the story developed and led to another one?
That's a great question. The ending has stayed the same for each one. There are certain things that take place in the books, without creating any spoilers, that have changed. I thought some things would turn out. They're like, okay, this isn't working out the way I think, and I make some changes in the book before the ending. But the endings have always stayed the same. That may change. I'm sure I'm going to have a book where something happens. I'm going to change my mind.
Okay, Alan. First of all, thank you for writing Maria as a badass, because she's a badass. I was thinking nothing happens to this girl. She's a great spy. She's a great spy. Helen, when your book comes out, I will do my best to promote it and
Oh,
read
thank
it
you.
and all that. And then I will get back to you. I will send you a message. And if I bump into you in Lisbon, I will say hi. Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. Let me know when you're in Lisbon. We
Okay.
can meet up for coffee.
Okay, sure thing. So Alan, bye-bye, and thank you for being here with us, okay? I'll post this on my YouTube channel probably tomorrow, and then I will share the link with you, okay?
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for joining us this evening.
Thank you,
It's a
Alan.
pleasure to be
Thank
here.
you.
Ok.
Thank you,
Bye bye,
Alan.
Alan.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Tchau.
Pessoal, não
Bye.
desliguem, não
Bye.
desliguem. Bye bye, bye bye.